Okay, this is my skill presentation on the game of basketball. And I'll start out talking about offensive skill. Uh, um, the most important skills when it comes to basketball on offense is dribbling, shooting, inside scoring, and passing. Without these four uh, skills, your offense is going to be stagnant, one dimensional, easy to stop, and with a few of them, you wouldn't have no offense at all. When it comes to dribbling is necessary for moving the ball at all, which if you can't do that, then you can't have any offense at all unless you just pass. That would be kind of difficult. Um, it's necessary for beating the press. I've seen a few teams that have just passed on press, and it doesn't really work that well. It's a lot easier if you have a guy who can dribble the ball, because if you have a guy that can beat the press by himself, then it makes your team so much better at beating it. Um, it's necessary for moving an offense. A guy comes up and sets a screen on you. If you can't dribble to get past him and use that screen, then you can't create mismatches. You can't give yourself an advantage. You really can't play basketball without dribbling. When it comes to shooting makes your game two-dimensional at least. It opens up opportunities for you to score outside the paint, but maybe even more so inside the paint because you can get a guy in a pump fake. You have guys coming out on you to play defense on you on the perimeter. Without that, he's gonna sit back and just wait for you to drive to the basket. If he's doing that and you can't shoot a three-pointer, then you're going to have trouble scoring the basketball at all. It also provides more points. Obviously, you have the three-pointer. It's worth more points than a two-pointer. That's why you see guys in the NBA score 150 points now, where you didn't really see that a whole lot happening in the older eras where they didn't shoot as many threes. When it comes to passing is necessary, completely necessary for moving an offense at all. Passing is probably just as necessary as dribbling, because you can't just have one guy with the ball. Because if he gets double teamed and he can't pass the ball out of that, then he's gonna turn the ball over every time. Inside scoring is kind of in three different subsections, which is layups, dunks, and post moves. Layups are probably the most fundamental way to score the ball in the game of basketball. It's just somebody driving to the basket and shoots it up off the backboard usually, and it goes in. It's really the easiest way to score in basketball. A dunk is pretty much the same thing, but it's a lot more entertaining. It's one of the biggest reasons that basketball is such a big game nowadays is because of the dunk and how entertaining it is. You saw how Michael Jordan changed the game with the dunk. When it comes to post moves are some of my favorite ways of looking at people score. It's one of the most entertaining in my eyes because it's so smooth. A guy uses a hook shot or a post fade that can make his game as a big man unstoppable, really. And it also allows him to fake one of those things and get an easy dunk or layup that way. Screening is a very fundamental play, I guess. It's just somebody comes up and kind of gets like this, sets themselves up and keeps their feet set, and the offensive player runs past them, and the defender is supposed to run into the screener, and that's how you create mismatches. It creates space for a three-pointer or a jump shot, maybe even a layup. It's just an all-around fundamental play, and every team should use screens to their advantages. Free throws are the easiest way to score points. if your team is dedicated to actually getting good at shooting free throws, because every team goes to the line, and if there's nobody contesting you, then you should hit free throws when you take them. For warm ups, teams, the most common is probably full court layups before games. You see teams line up in two different lines, and one shoots the layup, the other one grabs the rebound and passes it back to the layup line. Excuse me. There's also the star drill and other drills where you practice passing and a flow of an offense, passing cut, and all these different kinds. And also stretching. Stretching is an important thing to do before games in order to warm up. It'll cool you down. It'll prevent injury, and it'll kind of calm you down. It gives you in a mindset for the game. Moving on to defense, on-ball defensive skill is where an on-ball defender is somebody who's guarding the ball. And one guy who does that very well can change how an entire defense plays defense. You look at a guy like Pat Beverly, how he changes the game in NBA games. He goes out and plays harder than anybody else in the NBA on defense. And he's turned the Clippers into one of the best defensive teams in the league in modern league history. Good on-ball defense requires a player to move his feet, stay low, be prepared for anything. He's got to be able to poke at the ball without selling out for it and letting a guy beat him. He's got to be fully prepared at any time to contest a shot or have his player drive to the basket and contest the layup or a dunk. He's got to be very athletic and have a good basketball IQ. He has to be listening at all times for his teammates to call out screens and switches. And if he does all this, then he's a good on-ball defender, and he can really change how his entire team plays basketball. Off-ball defenders, it's really important for them to call out screens for on-ball defenders, and they have to decide when the on-ball defender needs to switch onto a different offensive player or stay, and they should call that out every time. On-ball defenders should always be prepared to contest jump shots, and they should also be prepared for the offensive players to drive to the basket. Off-ball defenders should prevent off-ball offensive players from getting open. That's probably their biggest job, is to stay on their man and make sure that he doesn't get an open jumper or drive to the lane without him knowing and getting an easy basket inside. But they should also be aware enough to call out screens and tell their guy when to switch whenever you're coming up to help out on a screen play. They also need to have a good basketball IQ and know when to double team and how to double team well. Moving on to basketball IQ is a very important skill for every position in basketball, really, in every situation in basketball. It's pretty much a decision-making skill, and it impacts every single part of basketball, whether it's a screen, whether it's a drive, whether it's knowing when to take a jump shot, or when to pass the ball, when to drive, when to do anything really, when to sell out for the ball, when to jump in a passing lane and try to steal the ball, and hit on a fast break. On offense, point guards are usually the player with the highest basketball IQ on the team, and this is because it's their job to set up their teammates for scoring situations, and really run the entire offense. They're the ones who have to set up the play calls and get their team really moving. Um, the point guard is really he's like an on-court coach, or at least he should be on good teams. That's what a lot of people would say, is that the point guard is usually the leader on the team. Moving on to kind of the skill of hard work, I guess. You look at skill of practice. I guess some of it could be a coach's skill on getting his players to do the right things, work harder than any other team, and kind of give it 100%, I guess. Um, if players are practicing shooting drills, if their goal for the season is try to get their 3-point percentage up, and the coach can motivate them to practice outside of practices, then he's done his job well. Because that's really what it comes down to, is how hard can you get your players to work, how involved can you get your team, and whenever you can get somebody to give you 100% in practice, in games, and even whenever they're at home, that's whenever you can really do something special with your team. So that's about everything. I'm sorry that I've had a nasally voice. I can barely swallow. I've been kind of sick lately. But I think I've done okay with it. So thank you. And that's it.